This is the Investor Mindset Podcast. So I remember growing up as very, middle-class mindset about money. And I definitely learned, don't talk about money. Yeah. Don't ask people about money. Don't ask people what they make or how they made it or what they're doing or what they're investing in. And still with some family members, it's still that way. But I've definitely learned a different way of thinking. So how do you recommend talking to kids when it comes to money? And at what age does it make to start bringing them into the conversation about how money is made and starting to develop that financial literacy?
3, 4, 5. I mean, especially, so like we would travel over the world. So we would have money from across the world and we would have, we would talk about currency. I mean, from coin to paper, to some of it's made out of cotton. I mean, money's a currency to have the like you want, to buy what you want. Right? I mean, you got to have the currency. Now, digital currency is a whole nother piece. We touch on it a little in the book. And as we move into the book being brought out, it's coming out Mother's Day week. So May 10th, specifically, it will be in all the bookstores across the country. But as it comes out, then the website's going to become a checklist and a resource guide for the things that are here to come, right? NFTs, digital currency. So when my kids were young, I mean, we traveled a lot and we just talked about money. I let them hold money. I let them handle money at a very early age. I would put them in front of me and I would take them, whether it's to the bank, and I'd sit them up on the counter, old school style, and they'd make their little deposits with their cash or their checks or whatever money they had. So I would involve them in the transaction so they weren't scared of it. We would just talk about it. We would talk about, what do you want to buy? Well, how much does that cost? And how do we want to make the money to have that? And then we would brainstorm. And at about 4 or 5 years old was really probably the defining time when, with my son, every year at the end of the year, we would do goal setting. And I started goal setting with my kids really, really young. My daughter was born into it, where we reflect on what was, great about the year. What do we want for this year? What are some things that are different this year because you're older, stronger, different, more skill sets can drive, where they can actually make more money? What else could they do? So we just have it be part of our family conversation. I'm a huge fan of games. What I did for the Rich Dad group was I was the master distributor of the cash flow game. So I would say, go back to Monopoly. I mean, one of the first questions that I get from a lot of parents buying the book right now, Steven, is, I've never talked about money in my family. How do I even begin? This is awkward. I'm going to get this book. And we've never had this conversation in our family. Mm-hmm. I said, so get the book and just start reading some chapters, even a little bit, a couple pages, and let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. And there'll be so many resources and guides. And I have a massive YouTube channel. I have a massive podcast. So, I have a lot of supplemental, support that'll be around the book to help. But get Monopoly, put it around the kitchen table, put cash flow. If you see up here, I have a Millionaire Maker game. So bring money and bring money making into a positive thing. You can have anything you want. We just have to make the money. So how should we do it? And with kids, here's one thing, like my kids always wanted the latest and greatest, right? Device. And so early on, 9, 10 years old, I said, well, then you have to make half the money to pay for it. Like what you want is different than what you need. And so that conversation is very detailed in the book, to have kids realize, like, if I want a bigger life, then I'm going to go out and make some money. And then we'll have mentoring moments, right? So mom mentoring moments where my kids can come and say, okay, mom, I want to make an extra several $1,000s. Now my kids are older, and they'll brainstorm. Well, how could you do that? And what could you do to create that extra money? And then at 18 years old, I gave my son an LLC. So he signed in. So he has deductions now. So they learn that. Early on, you start debit and credit card use as early as 13. And yes, that means the kid will have your credit card, parents, but you're staging them properly to have amazing credit scores and access to capital at 18 years old. And some of you parents out there will listen and say, that's really aggressive. Most parents send their kids off to colleges. Steven, I think, I grew up in Nebraska. Sounds like we're both kind of grew up similar, where here's your first credit card. I wasn't even given a credit card. I just kind of applied myself and figured it out. Like, okay, I got some credit and I got some.
So many kids that I met at school had never learned about making money on their own because they didn't have to. They weren't forced to. I started working when I was 12. I was actually working much, much younger for a couple dollars an hour. Yeah. But I learned very early about making money, but I learned about earning money. I didn't learn about creating money. I didn't learn that until much later. But something I really want to underline here that I thought was really important is the conversation that you're actually having is not about what you can afford, but it's how you can afford it, and brainstorming about how to come together and how that can be possible. And then they can actually use that creativity, and you're really almost getting them to start building that kind of critical thinking and deciding, well, what's most important? What do I want to go through in order to get that thing? I really like that. And I want to get into two of your favorite strategies from the book. I know we've talked about a couple, but before we do, I know that you've put together a very special package that we're giving away for anybody who buys a book. And I want to make sure people can get the link to that because it's special. We're at Investor Mindset, just want to get this book out to as many people as possible because I know it's going to make an impact. But tell people about those bonuses and how they get access to them for listening to the show.
Absolutely. So makeyourkidsmillionaires.com/Steven, right? So we know that you're all you came from his podcast because we want to know that. But when you go to our page, you're going to buy a book. It's $25 plus shipping and handling. But for doing your pre-order, we're going to give you massive bonuses. So $14.97, so almost $1,500 of bonuses. There's a kids financial filing cabinet my daughter and I made, which gives you 4 components. So as your kids make money, where do they put it? From charity. I teach at 10 years old, cost of goods and expenses, right? That's got to come out of their entrepreneurial venture. How do they make money long-term? What do they put money long-term, short-term? So there's a financial filing cabinet for the kids that you can be very collaborative with. It's very fun to build. Has a little bit of vision board inside of it. Never pay your kids an allowance. So it's actually the tasks and the process of how to do that. Probably the biggest bonus that will come once you receive your book is Kyle and I, my co-author is an Air Force fighter pilot trainer, retired of 25 years. So how he worked with his kids on financial literacy is different than how I did mine. So what's great about the book of these 2 stories, 2 different paths, you're going to pick a plan and you're going to go for it. So what he and I are going to do is we're going to have a master class. So once you get your book in hand, which will be around the end of May, because it actually gets released Mother's Day week. Then in June, July, we're going to have a masterclass where you'll be invited to bring your book, ask questions, and then we're going to guide you through how do you put this financial foundation and these conversations in your household. So the masterclass is probably the biggest thing. But between now and then, I gave, this is a massive gift. I have another book called Put More Cash in Your Pocket. And I actually dissected it for 8 hours. And how do you and your family make an extra $500,000, $5,000 a month? Right. So the Put More Cash in Your Pocket, which is right here. I'm going to give you a copy of my other book and 8 hours of me telling you, how do you put more cash in your pocket? This exact conversation we're just talking about. And, inside that skill set, Steven, of putting more cash in your pocket and teaching those kids how to make money is negotiating. So I know you're going to ask me about, some strategy. I love negotiating with kids. And so some people, they'll look at my kids and they say, your kids are really mouthy. I said, they're not mouthy, they're negotiating. Like I'm teaching, like you said, critical thinking skills, decision-making skills, trial and error.
Thank you for listening to the Investor Mindset Podcast. If you like what you heard, make sure to rate, review, subscribe, and share with a friend. Head over to theinvestormindset.com to join the Insider Club, where we share tools and strategies from the top investors and entrepreneurs on how to take it to the next level.